If you're lucky enough to own a Hasselblad X-Pan, the 30mm 5.6 aspheric is more than likely to be on your wish list. My name's Jonathan Harris from Worldwide Camera Exchange, and I'm just going to spend a few minutes now talking about the lens itself and running through what you should check and what you should look out for if you're buying secondhand. Okay, so 30mm lens for X-Pan. Do bear in mind, if you're using the camera in 24x36 mode, it's a moderate wide angle. But when you turn it to the 24x65 panoramic mode, this becomes a very, very wide angle lens indeed. So do bear that in mind before buying the lens. While it's a very popular lens, if you're using it in a panoramic, some photographers find it a little bit too wide. But obviously that is a very, very personal thing. When you buy the lens, it usually comes in a little black case, and it's important to make sure that all the bits are with it. So you'll get the lens itself, obviously, with its lens caps. You'll also get a viewfinder. And this gives you the correct 30mm rather field of view, using it in standard 24-36 and using it in 24-65, the panoramic mode. Also, you will have a lens hood, and finally, and probably most importantly, the sensor filter. I don't know how clearly you can see that, but the sensor filter has a neutral density spot in the middle, which, when attached to the lens, takes into account the natural vignetting that you get with the lens. So all the accessories are important, but that's probably the most important. Also, obviously, make sure you get the viewfinder and the lens hood as well. If you try to get these accessories afterwards, they are becoming very, very expensive. So if you're buying one of these, what should you look out for? Well, fundamentally, there are three things to check. Check out the cosmetics, check out the mechanics, and check out the optics. First of all, just have a look over the lens and just make sure it's relatively clean. These are getting a little bit old now, so a little bit of metal showing through on the lens hood bayonet, not that surprising, but you want to make sure it's not tatty. Have a look at the lens mount and just make sure there isn't excessive wear there. Also check out the viewfinder, because when this is sat on the top of the camera, it is very exposed. You want to make sure there are no nasty dings or no nasty cracks in the viewfinder itself, because this is plastic. It's not brilliantly made, so they are a little bit vulnerable. Obviously, check out the lens hood as well. Just make sure there are no nasty dings on the corner of the lens hood. This might sound like a really obvious thing talking about the cosmetics, but if you do check it over carefully, you can build up a good idea in your own mind of the life the lens has led. Once you're happy it hasn't been abused or misused, then I'd move on to the second check. Just check out the mechanics. They're relatively simple lenses. Make sure the focusing is moving smoothly. Make sure the aperturing is moving smoothly. And if you just look through the lens, just make sure that the shape the aperture is forming is symmetrical. Sometimes, although it is unusual on X-Pan lenses, the aperture blades can come out of alignment, so the shape you see when you're looking through the lens becomes irregular. So do keep an eye open for that. On the viewfinder, make sure the bubble's there. The bubble on this one is missing. Not the end of the world, but it's an expensive lens, you'd really want it there. But the missing bubble is actually quite a common problem, and we've failed to actually find somebody that can provide a replacement bubble vial. So do check that all carefully. Also, look through and just make sure that the frames are in the correct position. Again, with these, I've seen these with a knock before, and the bright line frames in the viewfinder have actually come out of alignment. So just look through and make sure the bright line frames are all square and exactly where they should be. Once you're happy that mechanically it works well, the final check and the most important check, you do need to look over this one very, very carefully indeed. You need to check out the optics. Let me start with the filter. Just make sure that's clean. One or two tiny scratches won't affect performance at all, but you really want it clean. If there are scratches on the filter, on the center filter, make sure you get a discount. Again, optics with a viewfinder, make sure look through, make sure it's clean, make sure there's no fungus or misting inside looking into the viewfinder front and back. I'll put up a link that explains about fungus. That's something you need to be very, very well aware of. And finally, with the lens, look into the lens. very carefully and make sure there's no fungus or misting inside on both the front and the back. Also make sure there are no scratches, but as I said with the filter, a few light scratches on the front won't make any difference at all, but it will and should impact the value of the lens. Now the most important thing to check with these lenses as regards the optics is something you might have already spotted. If you look into this lens, you'll see there are lots of little spots, little white spots inside. That's very common with the 30mm. It very rarely affects performance, but it does affect, and it should affect the value. I mean, you don't want to spend top dollar on one of these lenses. They are very expensive and have spots inside. This issue is called Schneideritis. It's something that Schneider lenses suffer from. And it's caused when the outside edges of concave lens elements or lens groups. So these are lenses that are thin in the middle and thick on the outside. The paint, the blackening paint they put around the outside of the lens or the lens group begins to disintegrate, and you get these little white spots appearing when you look into the lens. They're not actually in the optical path. What you're seeing is reflections of the white spots on the outside of the individual lens elements or lens groups. Which is why they tend not to affect performance. But it's something that you really do need to check for. A few little spots, not an issue. It should possibly only affect the price slightly. If there's a lot inside, as with this particular lens, it should impact the value. I mean, there are those that will argue that ultimately all lenses will end up like this. So it doesn't affect the value. It doesn't affect the performance. So why should it affect the value? But there are still plenty around with good glass, and if you have a choice of two lenses, one with good glass and one with bad Schneideritis, obviously the one with bad Schneideritis is going to be worth less. So do keep an eye open for that. If you're happy it's clean inside, if you're happy there are no scratches, you're happy there's no fungus, and if you're happy with the mechanics and the cosmetics, then you can be sure it's going to be a good, reliable lens. So just in summary, check the three things. You check the cosmetics, you check the mechanics, and you check the optics. A clean bill of health in those three areas, then go for it. It'll be a good, reliable lens. I hope that's been useful. If you have any comments, please stick them in the box below. Otherwise, please subscribe and like, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.